Hi, everyone. Welcome to this evening's second community meeting on the City of Chico's housing element update for the period 2022 through 2030. My name is Sherry Morgado. I'm with Housing Tools, and we're the city's consultant assisting in this housing element update process. We have some information that we want to cover regarding tonight's Zoom meeting features, and I'm going to turn that over to my colleague, Jess, who will introduce herself now.
Good evening. My name is Jess Candela, and I'm a project specialist with Housing Tools. I'll be providing some technical support instructions for this evening's community meeting. Before I get started, my colleague Beatriz is going to read the Spanish interpretation instructions in Spanish, and then I'll repeat them in English. So go ahead, Beatriz.
Thank you, Jess. Para aquellos que quieran escuchar esta reunión en español, vamos a tener la función de interpretación en vivo en español. En cuanto termine de dar las instrucciones en español, van a ver en la parte de abajo de su pantalla un icono de un globo o un mundo, como lo conozcan. Den clic ahí y luego pueden seleccionar el idioma en el que quieren escuchar la conversación. También tienen la opción de poner en silencio el audio original. De esa manera solo escuchan la voz del intérprete, que soy yo. De otra manera, si lo dejan con sonido del audio original, escucharán 20% el audio original, 80% la interpretación. Back to you, Jess.
Thanks, Beatriz. So I'll repeat those instructions in English that Beatriz just read in Spanish. So if you'd like to hear the live Spanish interpretation, please follow along. First, you'll click Interpretation. The interpretation icon that you see here can be found at the bottom of your screen. Then you'll click Spanish. Then we recommend that you click Mute Original Audio to hear Beatriz, our interpreter, more clearly. This will mute the audio in English and provide the Spanish interpretation only. Next slide, please. You may download a PDF of these slides in either English or Spanish by visiting our website at www.chicohousingelement.com/resources. Again, that's www.chicohousingelement.com/resources. And I'll put that link in the chat in just a moment. Next slide, please. If you are deaf or hard of hearing or prefer to read closed captions, we have enabled Zoom's live transcript feature. To view the closed captions, first, you'll click Live Transcript at the bottom of your screen. Then you'll click the caret and select Show Subtitle. Instead, if you would like to hide the closed captions, you'll click Live Transcript at the bottom of your screen, click the caret, and then select Hide Subtitle. Next slide, please. We have 3 interactive features for the meeting tonight. First, we will have 3 polls. I will read the question and your answer choices aloud, and then you'll select your answer on the screen. Make sure you click the button at the bottom of the poll that reads Submit Poll. Polls are anonymous and results will be shared live. Next is the chat. You'll see that you can't type in the chat. We've reserved this space for us to send out technical support help as well as share links for you to learn more about the housing element. Finally is the Q&A. If you have technical difficulties and need support, please send us a question via the Q&A feature. You may also type questions into the Q&A that you'd like for us to answer at the end of the webinar. If we don't have time to get to all of the questions, we will post a document on our website, www.chicohousingelement.com, by August 31st, along with the recording of the webinar in both English and Spanish. Finally, if you are joining us via calling in on a phone and can join via the web, we recommend that you do so. The polls, the chat, and the Q&A features can only be used via the web. If you have a personal computer, a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone and have a Zoom account, you can enter the meeting ID for this meeting to join via the web. The meeting ID is 833-1707-1974. Again, that's 833-1707-1974. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll have our first poll now. So I'll launch it and you'll see it on your screen. Our question is, how did you hear about this event? And your answer choices are City of Chico Facebook, City of Chico Instagram, City of Chico Twitter, our website, which is www.chicohousingelement.com, an email from Housing Tools, a local organization, the radio, a news station or a newspaper, word of mouth, or other. So I see that a little over half of us have responded, so I'll leave this open for about 15 more seconds. Okay, make sure you get your answer choices selected and make sure you hit the button at the bottom that says submit poll. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So 8% of us heard about this event through the City of Chico Facebook, 5% City of Chico Instagram, 0% City of Chico Twitter, 6% our website, which is www.chicohousingelement.com, 36% from an email from Housing Tools, 22% from a local organization, 6% from radio, news station, or newspaper, 11% word of mouth, and 6% other. Thanks so much for participating in this poll. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Jess. So before we get started, I'm going to briefly go over our community meeting conduct rules. First of all input is to be provided in the spirit of helping to form goals and activities that address housing needs in Chico. All communication, whether verbal or in writing, must be polite and respectful of others. Any violations of these rules will be cause for action by the facilitators, including turning off microphones or expulsion from the meeting. I'm going to briefly go over our agenda for this evening. So we're going to start out with a very brief overview of the housing element. We went over this in detail at the first committee meeting, but we're going to touch on some key points to make sure that we get everybody up to speed if you didn't participate in the first meeting. We'll go over the purpose of goals, policies, and activities within the housing element, which is the focus of tonight's meeting. We'll talk about the current housing element, goals, policies, and activities. We're going to give some highlights of themes from the needs assessment, and then we're going to move into our breakout groups. After the breakout groups, which will be meeting for a total of 60 minutes, we will reconvene to review all of the group's input, and then we'll close with a brief overview of the future timeline and meetings to complete the housing element update.
Okay, so we're going to move into our next poll. You should see that on your screen now. Our question is, did you participate in our first community meeting held February 10th, 2021, or the online community survey? And your answer choices are yes, no, or unsure. Okay, I'm going to leave this open for about 5 more seconds. Make sure you hit the button at the bottom that says submit poll. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So 48% of us said yes. I have participated in the first community meeting held February 10th, 2021, or the online community survey. 42% said no, this is my first time participating in one of the housing element events, so thanks so much for joining us. And 10% are unsure. Next slide, please.
So I'm going to briefly go over a little bit about the purpose of the housing element itself. So the housing element establishes the city's priorities for housing its citizens in 8-year planning cycles. It sets the goals for the allocation of funding, program coordination, and zoning efforts to support the production of housing. It's one of the mandated elements of the city's general plan, and it must be consistent with the general plan, which has a longer 15 to 20-year timeframe. There are certain elements of the housing element itself in terms of mandated topics that have to be addressed. When you review the draft that will be produced in several months in early 2022, then you'll be able to see how these various topics fit in together in the housing element. First is we have to describe the public participation process, which includes all of the events that we've been having with the community meetings and the surveys. It includes a review of the previous housing element progress. It describes in detail housing needs, which were determined as a result of a very thorough assessment. It looks at sites that are available within the city of Chico to address the city's future housing growth need and provides that inventory. It includes an inventory of financial resources that might be available to the city to address some of the programs that it establishes. It includes an analysis of constraints, both governmental and non-governmental, to the development of housing. It assesses fair housing in the city of Chico in terms of what issues may be happening, the capacity that the city has, what obstacles and barriers there are, contributing factors to any fair housing issues, and then a set of goals, policies, and activities around fair housing. And then finally, are the goals, policies, and activities themselves. I wanted to briefly touch on AB 686, which was a piece of legislation adopted a couple of years ago that amended the housing element law rather significantly. And this is the requirement that each housing element affirmatively further fair housing. And it very distinctly describes what must be involved in the assessment of fair housing. So again, this was a 2018 law that expands and protects the duty of state and public agencies to affirmatively further fair housing in California with the purpose to foster inclusive communities. The required sections of this analysis are outreach and assessment of fair housing, a sites analysis, contributing factors, and goals and actions. So as I mentioned, the housing element is carried out over 8-year planning cycles, so that you can see from this graph that the existing getting ready to expire housing element period covered the period of 2014 through 2021. The new housing element period, which is the focus of this evening's conversation, covers the period 2022 to 2030. The purpose of the goals, policies, and activities. These are central to the development of the housing element, and it really constitutes the housing program or the housing plan within the housing element. They're really at the core of the housing program. They form the foundation of the city's strategy to address housing needs and support the achievement of the city's regional housing needs allocation or RENA goals. The goals, policies, and activities are carried out over the 8-year cycle of the housing element, and the city's progress is reported annually to the state. The housing element update also looks back at the current goals, policies, and activities and reports on the city's overall achievements and challenges. Here's a bullet point list of the goals that are in the current housing element for 2014 through 2021. To increase equal housing opportunities, to provide housing that is affordable to low incomes, promote construction of a wide range of housing types, encourage the creation of housing for persons with special needs, improve, rehabilitate, and revitalize existing neighborhoods, increase home ownership, and encourage energy efficiency in housing. Now I wanted to cover briefly some themes from the needs assessment. And this first slide covers quantitative data findings. The average asking rents in Chico increased 14.2% between 2017 and 2020. There's an unmet need of approximately 6,867 subsidized units, which are affordable to low-income households. And in terms of single-family homes, the median sales price of a single-family home increased 45% between 2015 and 2020. Some additional themes from the needs assessment. This is from the online survey and the first community meeting. What was identified by citizens in Chico is that the greatest housing needs are affordable rental units, accessible units that address the needs of seniors and those with disabilities, rental housing that is located close to shopping, medical providers, and social activities, single-family homes. In addition, we had a question regarding discrimination that our residents have encountered, and community members reported encountering discrimination in their housing search due to family size/family status, single motherhood, race or ethnicity, disability, homeless status, LGBTQ+ identity, age, and religion. And now we were going to open it up for any questions and answers that the participants in the webinar might have about the information that we just shared.
Thanks, Sherry. So we don't have any questions just yet, but if you haven't had a chance yet and you have a question or comment, please feel free to type those into the Q&A that you'd like us to answer. So I'll give you all a few minutes to do that. And just as a reminder, you can always go to our website, www.chicohousingelement.com, to look at resources, information from the previous community meeting, future opportunities to participate, like our next community survey. So go ahead and check that out, and I'll wait just a few minutes here for some questions. Okay, we have a question, Sherry. We have a few questions. Okay, so how often does the city analyze progress toward the housing element goals?
The city analyzes that each year in its annual progress report to the state of California.
Okay, great. Our next question is, how do you estimate that 6,000 plus units are needed? What's the reference?
So I'd like to direct you to the first community meeting materials. We have our PowerPoint presentation there, and there's a slide where that is specifically covered. So there's a chart where you'll be able to see the exact breakdown. But basically what we do is we look at the total number of households in Chico who qualify as low income based upon their annual household income. And then we look at the number of subsidized units in Chico, both in terms of those that have received subsidies through some of the traditional funding streams, like tax credits, for example, or home funds, for example. We also look at the number of households who hold Housing Choice Section 8 vouchers, and we add those together. And then basically we subtract the number of subsidized units from the number of households that would be eligible, and that's how we come up with the gap.
Thanks, Sherry. Our next question is 14% increase in rent seems low. How did you get those figures?
Those figures were based upon the report that we received from an agency that actually tracks rents in urban and suburban areas. That data is also in a chart that's in community meeting number 1 presentation as well, where we have the last few years broken down by each year's increase.
Okay, our next question is, are there any plans to add a goal to the existing ones, specifically related to health or quality of life?
That's a really great question. That's actually why we're here this evening, right? So tonight we're going to be talking about goals and activities. And although we, as you will see when we get to the breakout groups, while we've developed some guiding questions to help stir and encourage thought and creativity around this, the whole point of this evening is that the city would like to hear your thoughts and ideas about what you see as priorities that you would like the city to consider as goals and activities in the new housing element. So we're completely open to hearing new thoughts and ideas and your suggestions.
Okay, great. Our next question is, which religion or religions are discriminated against?
from the community survey that we completed. I don't have that information, I'm sorry, and that would be confidential at this point. I really couldn't reveal that. Just individuals indicated that they felt they had been discriminated against because of their religion.
Okay, we have quite a few more questions. We probably don't have time to get to all of them, but we'll answer a few more here. So is the climate crisis a part of the concern of the housing element? For example, infill density.
Yes, energy conservation is a mandated topic within the housing element as well. And so there'll be a whole section of the housing element that's dedicated to that discussion. So if you are interested in that particular topic, we'd encourage you to join that group this evening, that breakout room, which is going to be breakout room number 4.
Okay, I'm going to combine a couple of these. So Sherry, I'll read you 2 questions, but they're about the same topic. So the first one is, would it be possible to do housing elements more often than 8 years since multiple disasters change things so quickly here? And the second question is, was an 8-year cycle arbitrarily chosen, or is there an explicit reason for that time frame?
Yes, the state of California actually sets the planning cycles. Those are not determined by the local government. HCD, the State Department of Housing and Community Development, is very involved and directly oversees all housing elements in California. So the 8-year planning cycle is set by HCD, not by the city. That being said, if there are significant changes due to market conditions, natural disasters, so on and so forth, a city always has the option to go in and amend any element of its general plan, and that would include the housing element if the city council determined that that was a direction that they wanted to take.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to end the Q&A there. We still have some more unanswered questions that we'll make sure to include in our Q&A document that we'll post with written questions and our written responses on our website, which is www.chicohousingelement.com. And we'll post that by August 31st, so the end of the month. If you're on our email list, you'll also get an email letting you know that those resources are posted. So the Q&A, our poll report, the slides, the recording from the webinar, and then also our breakout group notes, which we haven't done yet because we're moving to that next, but all of that will be posted on our website by August 31st. So if you haven't signed up for our email list, please do. You can do that by going to www.chicohousingelement.com. And that concludes the Q&A.